G'day folks and welcome to the Encounters Down Under podcast. I'm your host Anthony Goodall and I invite guests to the show to share their amazing encounters with aliens and UFOs. If you or someone you know has had an encounter down under or anywhere in the world for our new segment Encounters Unbound, please get in touch with me via the Encounters Down Under Facebook page or email at australianUFOsightings@outlook.com.au. Be sure to join the Encounters Down Under Facebook page and YouTube channel where you can also get involved during the live stream interviews, sharing your thoughts and opinions during the live show. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to give us a rating and review on your favourite listening platform. But anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get into what you've been waiting for. Kick back and relax with your favourite beverage and enjoy the show. This episode is available to view on our YouTube channel, so be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with your thoughts on the episode. G'day folks and welcome to another episode of Encounters Down Under. Kain joins me on this episode to talk about encountering strange objects flying around, as well as experiences during his meditations. He goes on to mention having some forms of premonitions to which his family began questioning his sanity. But it's safe to say, Kain was deemed sane and goes on to heighten his spirituality. So please welcome to the show, Kain. G'day Kain, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey Anthony, nice to meet you.
Mate, it's great having you on the show, mate. Thanks for getting in touch with me and presenting me with what you've got here. Like, it seems like you've had like a few incredible experiences there throughout your lifetime at the moment, and like it's got me intrigued on what the hell's going on through your life at this moment. So, mate, look, tell us all about it.
So I guess the only way to explain it would be high strangeness. But I had to listen to one of your previous people on here. Was his name Mark? I think his name was Mark. He was a scientist, and as I was listening, he had his theory and some steps, and a lot of mine checked out in the same process as what he said. So if you're listening, Mark, like, I enjoyed your ideas, and we'll go from here. But mine started in 2012, and I suppose I had started to learn about consciousness from the book Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, and it had said that everything is like atoms vibrating at a different rate, and we attract things that are similar to our vibrational rate. And I'd never heard of that, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I happened to stumble across a Mythbusters episode of Cleve Baxter, and they were testing to see if plants could read minds, and they ended up spooking themselves a bit, and the conclusion was that they thought the plant possibly had read their mind. And I was like, shit, that's that consciousness stuff, how everything's connected on this like grand scale or whatever. So that had happened, and I assume that was a triggering point, because it was at that time that I had tried uni and I bombed out, and I was on Centrelink, and I was like, what can I do that's for free? Oh, I'll get into astronomy, that's for free. And I started to learn about astronomy, and it was coming up to the Lyrid meteor shower, which I believe was in April. Late April, maybe it was May, but I think it was April of 2012, and I decided I was going to stay outside all night. I was like, we've got X amount of nights in our lives, and I'm going to stay outside all night on my own and watch the sky and see what happens. And so I stayed outside all night, and I don't know the time specifically, because I'd learned, like, if you look at lights, it affects your night vision. And so I decided I wasn't going to look at my iPhone all night. But it was a little bit before sunrise. I'm just sitting there, I'd seen a few shooting stars. It wasn't really that exciting. And then this feeling come over me, just this incredible loving sensation. It was like when my son was born. I remember when he come out and this loving sensation hit me. It was like that, but maybe like 10 times more powerful. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe 10 seconds, maybe a minute. I have no idea. And I've since heard other experiences talk about this. Ryan from Post Disclosure World, he did a video where he briefly started off with this loving feeling that he got. And I've read about it in a book by an astronomer. And he said that he got this sensation like twice or whatever. So, like, at the time, I didn't think much of it. But the other thing that happened, and I also didn't think much of this at the time. So I had this incredible loving sensation come out of nowhere, and then these like, it was definitely coming on like first light sort of thing, because I could see them pretty well, and they were like giant boulders like rotating across the sky, and like that's what I thought they looked like, just giant rocks. And I seen like maybe two or three in the space of a couple minutes, maybe half an hour. And I went to the Unanderra Astronomy Club because I didn't think like I seen a UFO. I didn't even think about that loving sensation or nothing. I was like, man, I seen these weird fucking boulders flying across the sky, and I thought maybe because I'd been learning about shooting stars and how they're like dust trails of meteors and stuff, and like that's where my mind went. So I went to the astronomy club, and they were like, "Oh, we've never seen nothing like that," and I just dismissed it as some sort of like space phenomenon. And I'd learned about satellites and that, and it wasn't a satellite. So it went on. I'd started learning about consciousness and the law of attraction, and I mucked around with like visualization, and I ended up like, kind of starting to believe in that stuff. And then it was 2014, and I seen this lady. Her name was Vicky, and I seen her in the randomest part of town, and I hadn't seen her for like 20 years almost, maybe 15 years. And I was like, well, if the law of attraction is real, I'm going to see Vicky in the next 3 days. And I was like, if it's real, that's going to happen. And I did see her in another part of the Illawarra where I live. I was like, fuck, man. What's that about? So I got on Google. I'd had that book, Think and Grow Rich, and a couple of other little ones. There was one, Cybernetics from Maxwell Maltz, and Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. They were three little reference books that kind of started me on this journey. And then I Googled, and a few people said you should read Ask and It Is Given from Esther Hicks. So I got this book, and I forgot to put it next to me to read, but it was basically saying, like, our mind, it brings all this stuff to us, and it had different exercises, and it was saying that we're like a cork floating on water, and when we release our thoughts, that we're like the cork floats to the top of the water, and we release all resistance to things that we truly want. So I was like, well, I'll try meditating. And it says you may experience, as you go to higher vibrations, it was saying you may feel like itching on your skin, or maybe your head will wobble or something. So I started meditating, and I don't know how long it took. I expected to just try and meditate for 5 to 10 minutes and like suck at it and then just go back to what I was doing. This was in like June of 2014. And so I've meditated, and I remember like starting to feel some itches, and my eyes are closed and meditating, and I'm sort of like doing these ones a little bit. And I'm like, oh, it's like the book, try not to think, try not to think. So I'm doing it. And then this like purple wash of color, I'd say compare it to like watercolor. Like it wasn't thick, it was thin, and it went down in my mind's eye, purple. And then an orange color. And I seen myself seeing like translucent in like a cobblestone path garden. And then, like, I'm going to get to this bit, and I haven't gone down this rabbit hole yet. Maybe some listeners might know. But then I seen a green fairy wren, okay? And I have fairy wrens at my house, and my friend Tiffany, who I'd been talking to, her hair was dyed green. So I sort of associated it with that. Seen a green fairy wren. And then it all went white. And my mind, like my consciousness, it like took off in like a forward and left direction. Like that's something specific I remember, is that it went like a rocket ship to that direction. And I don't know how long it happened for. I just remember like a whooshing sort of sensation. But I come out, it was like all purple, like a purple dimension. And then there was like a purple sphere, like a dark thing. And my thoughts was that I've projected my consciousness, because while I was doing it, I had heard of shamanic journeys and stuff. So I sort of, while it was happening, I was like, shit, this is what's happening. And I was like, I've projected my consciousness outside the universe. Like, that's where my mind went. And then then it changed and it went all like sand. Okay. And then there was a shadow of like this horn thing come up. And I'm thinking, trying not to think at the same time, but I'm thinking, oh, this must be like a subconscious fear, like the shamans deal with. Don't freak out. But I fucking freaked out. I thought it was like, it felt like it was Satan or something. And so I've snapped back to my body and I was breathing like so heavy. And like I hadn't any awareness that I had changed my breathing or nothing. And someone had messaged me because I'd been texting, and they'd messaged me, and it was over an hour and a half since they'd replied. So I'd been in this state for over an hour and a half, intending just to breathe, focus on my breathing for 5 minutes. So that was like, I went to the library. I started borrow books on the occult, and I didn't really get into UFOs still. I sort of knew about a few things like the Phoenix Light and the Cash Landrum case where that lady was injured from the UFO and all the helicopters. But so that went on to me starting to learn about the occult just a little bit. And like it affected me that I was like, I need to know everything I need to know about God. But I read that you should take 3 steps forward in the physical world and 1 step forward in the spiritual world. So I didn't pursue that path for very long. I did go to like a spiritualist church in Wollongong, just to like that sort of resonated with me after that experience. But it turns out like this is where I'll stop here for like references. Are you like familiar with the gateway process documents?
Not really. Let's
Okay.
sort of jog my memory a little bit. I might have heard it somewhere at some point, but just not really know the
I
terminology
think
to it.
that some listeners will definitely know. It's like the CIA documents on the Monroe Institute about astral projecting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they have like a formula to project your consciousness. You should really look it up. It like references time traveling and everything to do with astral projecting, and
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It explains the world, but it says, so it sort of tells you to do like a white light protection thing. It says the energy balloon, which sets up a pattern of the cosmic egg discussed earlier, enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of a suitable resonant state, but it's also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels, which the participant might encounter in the event that he achieves an out-of-body experience. And then it says it serves as a precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. So I went on my first my out-of-body experience. I went outside some place that I thought was outside the universe, looking at a sphere, and then you've got these government documents referencing a very similar thing. So I don't know if that's what I did, but I also went and chatted with a secret society. They have a lodge up Newtown, not specifically secret, but a cult. Do you know the Ordo Templi Orientis?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
No, they're like like the Freemasons and all that, but they're like a different one. And one of them sort of goes, "Oh, that sounds like something that AA talk about," and that's the Argentum Astros, I think they're called. Hang on, let me check. I've got it here in front of me. How do you say it? It is, I think it's Argentum Astros or something. But that's one of Alistair Crowley's occult groups. They have this thing called like crossing the abyss. And from the very tiny bits of stuff that I've looked at, like I've seen a picture someone done when they done it, and it was like a purple sort of thing. So I do wonder if like that's what happened. And did that happen easily because of my first experience where something seemed to contact me, this loving vibe? So that's two things. But then it come to 2018, and it was just after like To the Stars had launched, and like the Nimitz incident was in the New York Times and all that sort of stuff. And it was February. I was walking up my path at night time, and by now I was like well into UFOs. Like from October, I just read every single day. So by then I was like open to a few things. But I was walking up my driveway, and I live outside of town, so like a little country area sort of thing. It's very dark. There's no street lights or nothing like that. And I'm walking up my driveway to my granny flat, which is about 150 meters. And there was this glowing red, like orb light sort of thing in my paddock. And it was probably about the size of like a baseball. And it was like, it was off to this side of me as I was walking up. And it was like, I might have seen it and then went, wait, there's like a thing there. And I've looked at it, but I didn't say that out loud. I've just looked at it. And it was like it knew that it had caught my attention. And as soon as it had properly caught my attention, then it sort of dropped down a bit, and then it took off across my paddock. And I describe it as like, like you light the sparklers and they go, or like sort of like that, like it left a little sparkle trail behind it very slightly. And I kind of compared it to Tinkerbell from Disney's Peter Pan, the old cartoon, like she'd be like, pew, and leave a little trail behind her. So that was, that was February 2018. And I don't know what come first, but I'd been having like issues. I'd been having issues with my taps in my kitchen, okay? And they were always breaking. I guess I have a strong grip or something, but they were always breaking. And then this thing happened, and I stumbled across something which I don't actually think was relevant, okay? It was about like Australia monitoring the Murray-Darling and stuff. And I just started to get this vibe that like, because when I had that first out-of-body experience, I thought I had a spirit guide, okay? So I was like, I think my spirit guides are telling me that we're going to run out of water. And I took it as like seeing that orb. My friends are like, you're fucking nuts, Kain. But I seen this orb. I started to get this vibe. And then the next thing that happened, which Mark, in that interview I listened to the other day, like that guy Mark said, we get these voices in our head. And I had like a voice in my head while I started to watch the Simpsons movie. And it was like, this is what's going to happen. And the Simpsons movie is about under the dome, okay?
Yep.
So I had no idea what to think. It was like I was in psychosis, but I knew I was telling the truth. So I went and got under the dome, was freaking out, storing water. My family put me in the mental ward because I was talking about UFOs and aliens because of the Nimitz thing and because of To the Stars and then talking about after the aliens, then I moved on to saying we're going to run out of water. So I have the papers to say that I was in the mental ward because I was talking about the water and stuff. And then, so that was 2018. And then come 2019, by the end, we had all those fires and our water supply started to run out. And like at my place, like near the lagoon, like I got a creek behind mine and there was like 3 big puddles. and near Shell Harbour, like that whole thing dried up, and there was like all eels stuck there, and I was shitting my pants, man. Like, because I'd also had a dream at this time. I had a dream where I seen like a red planet, and I knew it. I thought in my dream, I thought it was like Nibiru or some shit. Let me have a drink.
Yeah, what?
So I thought it was like, in my dream, I thought it was like Planet X, and I knew I had to store water. So come like the end of 2019, and the sun just looked like a big red planet in the sky, and we'll run out of water. I was like, my dream, and I didn't know what to do. And besides just like sort of storing a bit of water in my shed that I knew would only last 6 months because water goes off, I didn't really know what to do. So I didn't worry after that, and then ended up like being it rained, we had floods, and COVID happened, which was the other thing that I had been worried about when I had this message about water was the dome, and it seemed to have gone that it went. We ran out of water, and then we all got locked down. And so I don't know how to take that stuff, but since then, I think that some of these things put bad things into our head to make us like fear things. We can possibly collectively manifest bad stuff. I don't know. So I don't think that these ETs put good stuff in our head or like bad stuff, doomsday prophecies in our head because it's necessarily going to happen. And I think that's something humans are going to learn as we go. I've read like Kevin Day has talked about a consciousness that can be good and bad, and the military were worried that he could cause a continental plate shift or some shit like that. So that's kind of my three big experiences. But that third one that come with so much high strangeness. I was with my mates. I was like had this presence. I was like, let's go down the beach. They're waiting for us, and we went down the beach, and this giant like equilateral triangle cloud appeared on the horizon. I was like, look, man, I said it was going to happen. And he's like, yeah, we didn't have our phones or nothing on us. Maybe that's how this works. But I sort of like put it out, like make a square. And then a square cloud appeared next to the triangle, and the triangle disappeared. And then that square changed into a triangle as well. So it went like triangle, square, and then they just, I don't know, it's like where they can cloak themselves as clouds or whether it's a projection of consciousness or something. But that's a thing that happened at that period. And I was at home, and my phone charger was hanging down, and it started to like sway on its own. And I remember messaging my friend. I was like, there's something here, I'm going to sage my house. But then at like 2 o'clock in the morning, like something grabbed my leg with like a burning sensation, and my bird flew out of its cage in the dark, screeching at the same time. So there's just been like, and like there's actually been heaps of those little experiences that I've got all through notebooks that I've like forgot all about over the years. But those are some of my things. But the other thing, say when I left my body, maybe the listeners might know. And I said that I've seen a green fairy wren. I stumbled on this book. It's called The Initiatory Path in Fairy Tales. And they talk about how these fairy tales are encoded messages of the great work, and how they are here to push humans along a certain path towards higher levels of consciousness. And it talks about how the hero is aided by a green bird, which embodies the hermetic understanding of the seed and fruit. So, like, I seen this green bird, and then there's this book that I only just stumbled upon this, and I want to get it. And it's saying as we go to higher levels of consciousness, we'll see a green bird. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, for starters, like for people who aren't really aware, a fairy wren is pretty much similar to a little willy wagtail. Those type of little birds. Just so people sort of get an idea of like which kind of bird you're talking about. But yeah, look, there's a lot of things that sort of can really question this. Like is like, have you had practice prior with the meditations before this to sort of lead up to this? Was like
No,
first smack bang first go.
I was the only sort of experience I had. Like, I'll be honest, I went to rehab for like smoking pot in 2010, and we did a bit of yoga once. So that was it. And yeah, and it was just like, I can't find the book over there, but like, yeah, it's called Ask and It Is Given from Esther Hicks, and she channels this entity called Abraham that tells us to. I mean, the Abraham being could be a trickster, but it's just all this stuff about raising your vibrations, practicing gratitude, things like that. And it does say if you practice this meditation, it says like all hell could break loose. And I mean, technically, I had a spiritual awakening, and for me, it was very strange. And then since then, I've just been following along with To the Stars and all the stuff that's been happening.
Yeah, because like I was trying to trying to point like the fact that you managed to meditate and get to yourself to a higher sense in that regard. Like it takes people a long time to try and achieve that goal. Like it's hard enough
Yeah,
trying to focus on nothing as it is when you're trying to meditate. Like you'll be there for like maybe 30 seconds there. Next minute your brain just starts wandering off to something else. It's extremely difficult trying to sit down and trying to control your mentality in that regard. And it's like and how you manage to go and nail it within like the first go just about is like that's quite the achievement in itself. It's like I don't think there's many people that can actually do that. And so
no,
like
well, I mean,
quite
I'd like
impressed.
to know more about this document, because it says it in the document about an unlikely event that you can go outside the terrestrial sphere. And if any of your listeners have any information on the more on the gateway process and know that it's on page 19, like the bottom paragraph.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who probably have had a crack at that and then sort of like at least yeah gotten to some point where it might be similar to your experience there. Like and by sense that you're saying like it could be a similar experience that a lot of people do have too, having this purple on these colourful sort of sections, I suppose, that wash over you at the time.
Yeah,
Like whether
I,
that's might be I don't know what would you call it. It's like it's going through the channels, maybe. I don't know. It's like I don't know how you want to really describe it.
that's what I thought maybe it was the chakras. But the other thing that sort of, so I had that experience, and then I decided to try the spiritualist church, and we were in there, and I think we all did meditate or something. But there was a lady that then she said something about an orange wash in her mind. And so I was like, oh, someone else has had a similar thing. But I didn't pursue that for a while.
Yeah.
I've since been back to the spiritualist church, and it's in Wollongong. I don't know if they do it anymore, but like, it's crazy. There's all these like elderly ladies, and they got me to sit at the front and like projected their thoughts, and I could guess what one of their favorites food was or something. It was like a roast dinner, and
Wow.
just like practicing telepathy
Yeah.
with old ladies was so random.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's a strange method, isn't it? Like it's so taboo trying to think that someone can read each other's mind or some sort of connection there. But there is obviously something there where some people have this ability where they can sort of connect with each other's emotions and thoughts and ideas and whatnot. But as yeah, like I say, it's as far fetched as it sounds. It's like, but the abilities are there, and it's the fact that the CIA and all sorts of stuff investigated into this sort of stuff like many years ago, or whatever. Like how many decades ago? I think it was like like around the Cold War there, and 50s and 60s and whatnot. There's obviously got to give precedence that there is some sort of existence to, remote viewing and telepathy of some sort. All that sort of stuff. It like must exist if they're taking it seriously to go and try and master it in their own for their own reasons.
yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, I feel like there's been occult teachings around for ages, and yeah, it gives me a bad vibe thinking about the CIA looking into that sort of stuff and how they started learning about it before we were even born, like,
Yeah,
and what effects they could have on us. Yeah, but I can say that I've experienced it a little bit, and I didn't go back to the spiritualist church too much because sometimes I find it hard just to like maintain like normal life. let alone that stuff. And when that stuff starts to take over and normal life slips, then I got to stop, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Like it can sort of get overwhelming in a sense too, and it can be very draining as well, trying to chase it down. And sometimes, with some people, I'm not saying everyone, but there's some people that sort of do lose themselves too deep into it, and like, yeah, sort of like might become like a bit of an addiction to a sense. Like, I'm not trying to say like it's, it affects everyone differently, but there are some people who just like go really deep down into it, and like they sort of like lose their grounding a little bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. I've been there like many times. That's why lately, because I have a small YouTube channel and I was just making compilations of like making a compilation of Dr. Gary Nolan. And I'm at home on my own with a broken hand, just constantly listening to stuff about UFOs. And I was like, far out, I've got to stop. Or, like, it's not healthy.
But then again, like it could be like opening yourself up into something more
Well,
than
that
what the
too.
reality is, and
Well,
that's a scary part. Like then everyone sees you as the scary, crazy person, because you're so deep into it, and like you're saying something that's well and truly bound our reality. So of course, yeah, people just see you as the crazy person. Like how did you sort of like defeat your family there with them
oh,
sending you
you
to
know
the
what I
bloody
did?
mental ward and that?
So I got sectioned. And I was there, and the doctors were like, "No, he seems pretty normal." And my family, like, they wouldn't let me out. I don't blame them more. Like, you know, I wouldn't know what to think. But so when I started to get like they gave me like a day release and then a night release. But when they gave me day release, I went out and like enrolled in like a TAFE course, and I'd done all this stuff to make it look like I was like doing better. Like, just, you know what I'm saying? Because like the doctors were like, no, he seems like relatively normal. But it was my family were like, no, he's saying all this weird stuff. He's scaring us.
Oh shit, that's
So
quite funny. It's amusing.
yeah, but then I mean, but they had to sit back and I don't really bring up the UFO stuff, and I suppose every now and then they probably see it on like Seven or whatever. But they definitely had to witness the water running out after me saying it would happen, and
Yeah, so
and
that's
all
the question I was going to bring up. Like, what do they say after that? Like after you made that sort of prediction?
well, my uncle's because I live next door to my uncle and his partner, like on this like property we live on outside of town. She was like she used to be in the Order of the Eastern Star, which is like the female Freemason lodge, and she was sort of like on my side, and my uncle gets upset about the UFO subject, so I don't really talk about it. My uncle's missus was like, "Yeah, you were right," and then we don't talk about it past that.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I don't really talk about the UFO subject much anymore. My uncle's brought up the TR3B, which I was like, oh, at least he's open to new ideas now and that. But yeah, I mean, I feel for him. Like,
Mm.
seeing me change over the years, I wasn't like this before.
Well,
You
that's the
know?
thing too. Like once you start experiencing something that's beyond reality, it sort of does change your perspective on the world, and that's a big thing for people to sort of understand and realize what the hell's going on. Because people are so narrow-minded, think that this is like this is life. There's nothing more to it. Go to work, pay taxes, die, all that sort of stuff. The
Yeah.
general, the just reality of what life is. But yet, when these people like the people who aren't open minded to this sort of stuff, once they actually see something of this nature or experience something, it just blows their mind completely, and they go, "Shit, there is more to this world than we really let on, or that I thought at least." And start diving a bit deeper into it, and they start getting interested, and then they start coming across as a crazy person. Like, no, I used to be like you, like I used to be one of these people who like was so skeptical and everything. No aliens existed. There was no such thing as ghosts and blah blah blah. And it's like, but then I had this happen. It's an amazing concept, and it's a frustrating one to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes that's how it has to be.
It's, I, I mean, I have a million thoughts about it. I would talk about it a little bit to people. I remember like before my out of body experience, but so I had this weird loving sensation and like these rocks. And then there was like two other things where like I had this thought, and then these 3 shooting stars went across the sky in like a row where I'd never seen that happen before. And it was like specifically after I'd been thinking stuff that it seemed relevant to. And then I forget what it was, but I talked to my mate and I was like, bro, you go to church. I was like, I think God talked to me, man. I don't know what to think of it. And he's like, oh, well, God works in mysterious ways. Now I don't think it's God. I think anything we can understand must be a level down from God. But and now I look at that more as like an alien intelligence. But my first thought was like, fuck, I'm a little bit embarrassed to talk about it, but I think it was God, man, you know? And then I had the outer body experience, and I only ever talked to maybe 2 or 3 people about that. I talked to my fam. Actually, that's what happened. I had that. I was upstairs in the main house living with my uncle when that happened. And then the next morning I come down, I was like, I left my body. I had an out of body experience. And everyone, like my nan and that, was like, oh, I'd love to have that. So that didn't get treated weird. It was the next stuff that got treated like next level.
That doesn't make sense.
But
Excuse me. But like,
yeah,
it's funny how like aliens and paranormal and all sorts of stuff can be a bit of a taboo subject there. But when he starts talking about like out of body experiences there, and I think nearly everyone has sort of had a somewhat kind of experience with out of bodies throughout their lifetime, even if they don't realize it. Maybe I'm just guessing here, but everyone seems to know what they're talking about when you talk about out of body experiences to a degree. And so, like I was saying, like when you're saying, like no one seemed to really be too bothered by that. Yeah, it sort of makes you feel that's a bit of the concept behind it.
well, that's true. I guess I suppose out of body experience might not seem threatening, whereas UFOs, it's like, where does that end? You know,
Yeah, that's one
and
good way to look at it. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
maybe that's why. But I do remember, like, say that happened, and then maybe the next day I was laying out on the trampoline trying to meditate and do it again, and I'm like, oh, I can see some blue this time, but it was just the sky through my eyelids. And, you know, I never like got to that state again. I did experience like rocking and stuff, and I think I read somewhere that that could be due to like blocked chakras actually. So I'm not too sure. There's just so many avenues you can go down.
Yeah, there is. Like, there's a lot to it. It goes a lot deeper than everyone thinks. It's just like a lot more than just sitting down, trying to clear your mind, and I don't know, trying to conjure up whatever you sort of feel you can get to. Obviously, you got your emotions, that throughout your daily life and lots of stuff can play a big effect on that. Just everything that's just just life in general. It's a big change in your life. And I'm not going by personal experiences here. I'm just going by what other people I've spoken to in the past in regards to that. Like they're saying, like I was saying, like it takes months for people to go and try and be able to control their emotions, their energy, their vibrations, and sort of stuff like that. Even just to be able to clear their mind, to even try and continue in get a clear state of mind, basically to be even attempt this. It's not an easy thing to do. And so that's like you're saying, like, it could be very well much to do with chakras and energies that are trying to really, well, whatever affected you at that time.
Yeah. Eventually, I'd like to look into that crossing the abyss thing that guy sort of pointed me in the direction of the AA, but I've got no idea. When you hear terms like Illuminati and stuff, I kind of think of like the AA is like the Illuminati, like proper occultists.
Yeah, which I wouldn't be surprised either, because like I sort of feel like we've got a bit of a shadow government that's overlooking everything, and they've got this sort of shit down pat, meditations and reading thoughts and stuff like. They control the
Yeah,
world, like they know how to advertise and TVs and stuff to go and make sure we go and buy this sort of stuff. They got shit. Well, they know how to read humans so well. I'm not speculating here. I'm making a big claim here, but it's just too convenient the way the world runs to go and keep our mindsets glued to the TV to go and go to work and then go and buy this because we always will want something more than like money is our goal here in life to go and try and buy the things that we want, but we can never sort of achieve. So
yeah, yeah.
that to me is like what do you want? Controlled media and controlled government sort of, I remember there was a term there someone mentioned it. It was G'd up really well. Explained the whole thing in a couple of words. But I'm sure I'm making sense of what I'm trying to explain. Hopefully.
100%. Like, are you familiar with like Robert Monroe?
I sort of feel like that sounds familiar too, but you have to jog my memory on that one.
He's like the pioneer of like out of body experiencing, and that's what those gateway process documents are like, sort of like because of him. But like you're aware of like lush energy and stuff like that. Like we give off an energy, and something could be harvesting
Oh
like
yeah, yep.
the Yeah, well, he reckons like he went out of his body and then he went to some place and learned about how we're created, but we're given like part of like say a soul or say divine essence, but it was put into us. So there was always going to be part of us that's not of the physical world. So we could never be fully satisfied because there's part of us that isn't from here. So it could even be further than just like, you know, all this marketing and all this bad stuff for humans. And then we've also got on the next level, we've got an essence in us or something that can never be completely satisfied.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much human nature, really. Like we're never really satisfied, regardless. Um, especially like in the Western society, really. Like I was
Yeah.
saying, we go to work, try and make money, try and get something better, and try and gain our careers to go and earn more money so we can buy better stuff, and that's pretty much our life. But when you look at the the poorer countries, like we'll consider them like third world countries or whatever, they don't have all this technology and all this sort of stuff that they desire, and they have a simple life. It's very neat. All they do is like they provide for their families and enjoy life. It's very simple. None of this greed or desires to go and want more. It just seems like a very Western sort of thing to really want to continue to gain more.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Being human is hard. I don't even
It
know. I mean,
is.
I have moments where I'm satisfied, but yeah, it doesn't even last long. Even though I'm aware of this stuff going on,
Yeah.
I'm sure you feel the same. Like you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
look, I've got
yeah,
goals in my life that I want to try and achieve because I want more and like stuff like that. But then like you look at the smaller picture, or if the bigger picture, if you want to consider it that way. Like I've got my family, I've got we're all living happily, we're healthy. Like in all honesty, like what more should you want?
yeah,
But yet you still have that bit of human greed in you that you still desire, want more, something that you can't obtain. You want that.
yeah,
Um, and like I said, like, I'm not sure, like, I'm not trying to quote here for uh, small villages and the third world countries or whatever you want to call them, the ones that aren't of Western regard of us, basically. Trying to comprise a difference in like there is a noticeable difference of the simple life compared to what we have. Go to work, and that's it. Slave labor us.
yeah, yep. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, perhaps, perhaps disclosure will eventually end that sort of way of thinking and will change. Maybe, perhaps the Westerners. I don't see disclosure affecting everyone on the world in like equal ways. Like you know, so perhaps it's us that are the more consuming nations that do need disclosure more so than the other ones.
Yeah, well, see, that's something too. Like all this control of media and sort of stuff. That's sort of people want to say that like all this sort of stuff is dampening down our vibrations, so we're not connecting to the Earth or the universe as much as what we used to there. There's a lot of control in this sort of environments, so we're losing our way a lot. We're considering, back in the days there, we had all these shamans there that used to, connect to the world, the nature, and
Yeah,
even the cultures then too were very close to nature in that regard too. Like, I'm not gonna say every civilization was like that, but there would have been something at least in human civilizations through the history there, where everything was like treated respectfully to nature in giving and returning sort of thing. That sort of mindset's always been there. Fair bit. Like you look at a few movies there. Like for one, like the new Avatar movies or the old one, but from James Cameron, I think it's his Avatar movies. How
Yeah,
he sort of describes that whole movie, like they're all the whole culture and the world is all connected and entwined as one. They all communicate and all respective of each other. They understand the food chains and stuff, but there's still that respect, not the greed and corporate gains of trying to slaughter every animal that you see there, just try and go and sell the pelts and meat and whatever for financial gain. It's more of like just to take what you need and try and give back in that sort of sense. Don't um, over harvest or something. Pretty much what I'm trying to explain. Yeah, I'm just
I know
explaining it
exactly.
weird, but yeah.
Something that I've picked up on, and I haven't noticed many people talk about it. Like, say, I said when I started getting into consciousness in 2012, and there's a MythBusters episode on Cleve Baxter's theory of, I don't know what it's called, theory of relativity or something. And they put the lie detector test on the plant, and then when they go to burn the plant, the lie detector test knows. But like, you're familiar with To the Stars, yeah, and Tom
Yeah,
DeLonge? Like in their first non-fiction book, Gods, Secret Machines Gods, like they reference um the book The Secret Life of Plants, which is about Cleve Baxter's experiments, and it goes like crazy deep into all this stuff about researching that we're connected. And I do wonder, like, are we going to learn about this more? Um, why is it in Gods for the first place? People that want disclosure, should we be listening more to Tom DeLonge and checking out his book? And then as a collective of ufologists, then like being advocates for this plants being able to read our minds, because they do all sorts of stuff. They put like brine shrimp in a thing in a timer in a house where no one can affect it, and the plants hooked up to a lie detector test, and the timer goes off, and the brine shrimp gets dropped in boiling water, and it dies immediately. And the plant, which is down the other end of the house, like knows, like the spikes on the lie detector test.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all. That's all in this book, Secret Life of Plants from Peter Tompkins, and this book's referenced in Tom DeLonge's book. So it's like I feel like we as UFO advocates and disclosure advocates and stuff, like we have a responsibility to study this stuff and like help each other to know. And I don't know, maybe we all put in for a lie detector test or something. I've got no idea how we can do this, but this knowledge is out there, and it's kind of like it's out there and no one's talking about it. So that's why I'm mentioning it now, actually. Like The Secret Life of Plants, and that's on YouTube. There's like it's terrible footage. It's from like the 80s, but they do all sorts of experiments. They chop up a cabbage in front of another cabbage, and the lie detector tests on that cabbage, and it's like screeching and stuff, and it's quite horrible to watch, actually.
That sound horrible. But it's
So yeah,
not like recently, like they're talking about mushrooms in their root systems. Like they're all interconnected there. Like mushrooms seem to be the key of like a. Oh, I can't explain it from word to word, but like they've got some sort of interconnected system that's similar to like what I was trying to say with the movie The Avatar.
yeah, like one organism sort of thing.
Yeah, but they're all connected. Like, they even talk about trees in the forest and that they can all communicate and give off pheromones or however. Like they know when there's a bug that's inside them that's sort of draining away their life, and like they give off like a signal. They're going, "Hey, look, I'm being killed here, so like just watch out." It's like I don't know what they're going to do to retaliate, but it's like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
know that it's warning all the other trees that there is an intruder here that's starting to kill other plants. So like there's obviously a system there that we're trying to understand, and like, it's going to be quite difficult to sort of try and get there if we're not being open with ourselves as it is to connect to it all.
yeah. Tom DeLonge did say, because I kind of go off Tom DeLonge and his path and where it started in like 2015 with the WikiLeaks, and then when Lou Elizondo took the stage and stuff. But Tom did say it was going to be very challenging for us to learn and tricky. So I like to hope that they have really sort of planned this out the best they can, and we will learn this stuff. It's hard. I worry about like the threat aspect of all this, and if we're being directed into like a digital age by this thing, and if we were like, we all did just chill in villages and make mud huts and stuff before all these greys come here, and then they started slowly giving us things or something, like, who knows? Like, I definitely don't prescribe to just humans. I think we maybe do have a genuine threat to our species. And since with the recent whistleblower, David Grush, I feel more pride in being a human now. Now that they've come out and said that there is non-human intelligence, like a whistleblower in our lifetime, not like Bob Lazar, that happened really before us, but if this is real, then we should feel a genuine sense of pride that we are human beings and that we are a unique species and we are really capable of a lot more. And like, I'm really glad that there's people like you putting this out, Anthony, like, because it gives people like me a way to talk. And I don't know, I've never talked about this in one, like my experiences. I've never talked about that in one sort of thing, like this happened and this happened and this happened, things like that. So I'm grateful that I got to come on today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, mate. It's great having you on here, mate. It's absolutely wonderful because there's more to life than everyone sort of expects. Really, like I was saying before, and like the more people like yourself that are coming out there and talking about this, that's a bigger reality that people need to sort of look at and understand, or at least try to understand. Because like I know you had a bit of a difficult time there, but like you don't sound that mentally ill. Like just to say that you're crazy, like to go and say like, oh, whatever's happening in my life is happening, but it's not like you you don't sound like you belong in a mental house. You know what I mean? Like,
No. I actually, like, say I got out and then like I went and got a job or whatever, but I made like a conscious effort to always be like very well presented and this and that, and I ended up like going off and doing all these extra things and getting extra work as a roadie and just like trying to really stay above like where everyone else was sort of like, oh, fucking Kane's talking about aliens and this and that. But they sort of stayed on this bar, and I kind of like try to get up and
well,
just
see,
to say,
like
look, I
you're
can do
aware,
this, and, yeah, and talk about this stuff and do this stuff. So, like,
yeah, yeah. So like you're aware, like whereas someone who is generally mentally ill will just keep sort of diving down and sinking lower and lower, until it becomes just babbling nonsense and
talking.
yeah, pretty much, and but here you are, you sound mentally healthy, and you're making sense or trying to make sense of your experiences. I've spoken to a lot of people, like not through the podcast, but others in the past. There, like, they get to that point there where they're sort of believing everything that they're seeing in the sky is of UFO nature, and like a lot of the stuff there has a logical explanation, which like a lot I can explain. I try to help in the past, and try and help them. They're like, no, there's like these are genuine UFOs, and I said, no, like look at something over here and do the same thing with your camera. You can have the same effects or something like. I'm giving them a a practical resemblance of what they're seeing and trying to prove it as a UFO, but not UFO. If that makes sense. I'm giving them a source to go off by to try and help them. I'm explaining this horribly now. They're giving them a basis to go off by, so they can tell the difference between what is a UFO and what is not, sort of thing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so like I explained that actually horribly. Sorry, I hope it made a little bit of sense.
I find like the larger groups on Facebook, like say like alien, Anunnaki, UFO groups or whatever, they tend to have those people that are just so desperate for that
Yeah,
fantastical idea that they'll clutch on, like grab onto anything. Whereas like if you dive a bit deeper, like the UFO subject is like we're not going to Mars to have burritos with aliens anytime soon. Like there's the revolution happening and possibly a spiritual war. And like I don't know what that means, but like really on a sense, but there's definitely like we're acknowledging that we're part something else. There's so many of us that are like, nah, the media is lying. We don't believe your bullshit no more. We are, and like you're saying, we are like why are we kind of being guided to consume and instead of like planting more trees together
Yeah.
as a group and all this sort of stuff. And it's a very like exciting time to be a human. I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't mean any disrespect to like anyone that's like, who are seeing multiple things, as long as it's a genuine sort of thing. But like,
Yeah.
as long as you sort of keep yourself grounded to the degree and open minded, but grounded at the same time, because like anything is possible in this world, and that's the thing we've got to try and understand and make everyone understand as well. Like, you can't just go and claim everything that isn't. I think that's just it, because you're gonna get bitten in the arse later on down the track. There, everything that you think is whatever you want to perceive it as, like someone's gonna change your world regardless whether you like it or not, and it's gonna open your perception. You start thinking a lot more broadly on things in life. Anything is possible. It doesn't matter who's in the industry or in this sort of who's having these experiences or whatnot. Whatever they say could very well be true, because we're not the ones experiencing it. You're the one experiencing it, or whoever else. Why do we have to dismiss what they're claiming to be, not to be real, sort of thing? So there
That's
are
right.
genuine people out there. And yeah, I know we're just talking about. I know we're just sort of talking shit about people like mentally ill and sort of like claiming UFOs and that, but like there's a degree of that sort of nature. I'm hoping I'm making sense. I'm trying not to upset too many people here, but there's
Oh
your
yeah,
listeners.
I know.
But
I know what you're saying.
yeah,
Nah, nah. There's one thing that I thought like I've had my experiences, and then over time, just through research, I've just been able to be like, oh, I found that happened to me in this book and stuff. So it's not just me, but like even when I seen that orb, there's a paper that was like declassified not too long ago called the anomalous acute and subacute field effects on human biological tissues, and it was in the Sun, and it's got this rating of AN3, and I think Jacques Vallée must have made that up. I don't know where this reference comes from, but it says AN3 anomalies with associated entities, i.e., ghosts, yetis, spirits, elves, and other mythical legendary entities. And this is in like a recently declassified military document that's talking about elves and spirits and stuff. And I seen this thing that I described as like a fairy for ages, and it's in. I don't know if you've read much of Tom DeLonge's books, but his Secret Machines books talks about the fairies and stuff. So, yeah, I didn't necessarily have a flying saucer encounter, but according to this, I had an AN3 encounter.
okay. I was going to like maybe refer it to like a Min Min light or something like.
Yeah, well, my pop, he's seen a Min Min light, so I mean, it's in my family that it's happened.
Yeah.
I never asked what color,
Excuse me.
but I seen a red one, and apparently, like Jim Semivan and that have said the red ones aren't great.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I have heard that like colors do have a bit of a representation about them. Then yeah, the red ones are
yeah,
supposed to be like the evil energies there. I think I more heard that one from the Skinwalker Ranch stories and stuff like that, where the red ones
yeah,
were supposed to be the bad ones.
that's about right.
Um,
I don't know, like, how do they know that?
yeah, I
No,
know.
no. I mean, besides the weird prophetic, like, sort of thoughts that ended up sort of happening, like, nothing bad come out of it.
Yeah, but it's more the fact that like you're seeing this light, you can see it sort of gliding along, and there's a bit of consciousness to it because like you've obviously both come to a realization like, hey, we're seeing each other here. Like, what the hell's going on? And then the fact that it's still like on, oh shit, I need to go and hide because this guy can see me. Like, is he supposed to see
Yeah,
me? Yeah, it's like that's sort of what I'm
that's
picking
what I
up from it.
thought. It was just waiting there. Well, like I learned about consciousness and how our awareness is there. So now, even as I'm thinking of it now, like, was it there when I seen it, and then it, like, the wavelengths collapsed or whatever, and then it was actually there in a physical projection? Or was it already there on another level, and I had to see it, and then, or was it there physically waiting? And like, yeah, I've never really thought about it like accidentally being there busted. I've always thought it was there waiting for me.
Yeah, okay. So,
And
what do you sort of feel like if it was waiting there for you? What do you think? Like, do you have any ideas of what it might be trying to achieve from it?
I got no idea. That's where it gets weird because I don't know. I actually, like, one of my weird thoughts is because I'd had an out of body experience, And I'd always wondered, what did my consciousness look like to something else? When I was in this purple dimension, did I look like an orb? Was my consciousness an orb? So I had actually like also considered, did a military person astral project and I seen a military member? Like, that was one of my first thoughts. I was like, it looked like a fairy. I never went straight to like alien or nothing. I guess I tried to jump to the most logical conclusion, was that I have astral projected, so, and wondered what I'd look like, and then I'd seen that. So maybe that's why my thinking went that way. But I really have no idea. I just know that like I had started getting into the UFO subject like big time because of To the Stars and the New York Times papers, and it was like just after an eclipse, actually. There was like the super blue blood moon eclipse of January 2018. So I had noticed that, and then wondered, I had noticed that and wondered about contact. And then, like, maybe a week or two later, there was an orb in my yard. So maybe an awareness or something.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because people who mention Mimin loss, they've always sort of said there's a consciousness about them. They know what they're doing. They're wherever they come from, we don't know. Still trying to work that out. There's obviously scientific sort of explanations behind them, saying it's like a bit of a mix of gas and lights from distant cities or horizon or something. Some sort of weird concept to it, which might have a little bit of sense to it. But the fact that these Min lights have consciousness about them, or they appear to have some sort of consciousness or awareness, sort of really blows out any sort of natural phenomenon in that sort of nature.
Yeah, yeah,
So it,
100%.
it sort of, and then the fact that like it's blowing sparks out as it's flying along,
Like,
it's like,
yeah,
what's all that
just very
about?
slightly. Like, it wasn't like crazy, just enough that I wasn't thinking it was like one entity. Like, there was a little bit that come off as it sped across the field, like so fast as well that it traveled that field. And it just reminded me of like Tinkerbell having to do whatever. Like, I think she gets trapped in a
Yeah,
jar or something and she races off. Like, yeah. And then it turned out that like To the Stars has put out a book with fairies in it, and then there's this, this um declassified military document talking about AN3 anomalies, like with elves and stuff. So I'm starting to like think that there's a whole range of like entities around us,
yeah.
maybe.
Well, see, it's not as far fetched as you sort of think. It's obviously all fairy tale sort of stuff that's gone throughout the decades of our civilization, as it is like as a bedtime story or whatever. Like, there's always been a mention of elves and dwarves and fairies and all sorts of stuff, and maybe they're not a fairy tale. They probably are these non-human entities that is being claimed now. They've just been. I know we could have. Well, humans are really good for like killing everything that doesn't look human. We're quite horrible for that. We're going, uh, just just for shits and giggles. If we don't like them, we're going to kill them, or we just make things extinct because we're hunting them down because they're not a human. That kind of nature. So we could have been nearly hunting these fairy tale creatures to an extinction. Like, just to sort of make that a bit of a speculation, but
Yeah,
yet
yeah.
there's like a minimal survivalist group that still exists, hiding under the grounds or something, or hiding in Neverland or something, wherever they are.
I did. I tried to like a. It was about that time after I'd seen it, and I had crazy, crazy anxiety, like about the water, and just so confused that like I seen an orb, and like by by rights I shouldn't be able to see an orb because orbs don't exist, and Luis Elizondo had just come out, so I was actually having like a lot of anxiety, and I tried a little shamanic journey thing that was on YouTube, and in my mind, I see myself in a field, like I was projected outside myself, and I see myself, and then this big brown salamander come up and gave me a hug, and then it turns out that these salamanders are one of these four main elemental creatures. There's like sylphs and gnomes and salamanders and stuff. So that was also something that got me wondering about these different life forms, and like if we can contact them with our mind. by going inwards instead of like looking outwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to sort of like go back to your experience where you saw these rocks flying through the air.
Yeah.
So what, like, run that through us again. Like, it seems really strange that rocks of all things be flying through the air. Like, usually people see like a craft with some sort of defined shape to it, but you're seeing like rocks that are like like boulder kind of top looking things, or
That's what they look like. They were up very high, like I don't know if it's the right term, towards the stratosphere or something, but like they were up high, like high plane satellites, but they were huge and they just went like floating across the sky. I think there was three, maybe four, and I it was like just after this crazy loving feeling. But some of my thoughts towards that is that some people think that these things are projections of our subconscious, some of these experiences that people have. And I've talked to some people in the Ordo Templi Orientis and Freemasons and talked to them about the Goetia and the Lesser Key of Solomon, which is like a sort of occult magic. And like what they do is it's written as you contact demons, but you're actually contacting the different sections of your subconscious mind. And Gary Nolan talked about that on Kurt Jamungel's interview as well, because Kurt was saying how his hands took over, and Gary was saying maybe part of your subconscious did that. But so I've wondered if it was like a projection, maybe it was like they say, everything we see is really like a hologram inside of our head made up of our senses. So like it probably has a lot to do with that, I think. The whole like experience, like UFO phenomenon, I think has to do with that. The fact that actually what we see is a thingy, a hologram inside of our head, which we're getting deep. But
yeah,
so then like if what I'm seeing is a hologram inside my head, how do I know that that's really there? Is something
yeah,
out there projecting inside my head? So like I think it was Mark, I'm sure he would have touched on it, that you have like a feeling. That was the first thing he said, was that you have a feeling, and then some sort of like projection, I think it was. And like mine was in order to his, and I also like that also caused a bit of a spiritual transformation in me. I did start to like think I don't need a grocery bag if I can carry my groceries to the checkout. Why do I need a grocery bag to carry it to my car? And I started,
mm.
that did cause like an environmental change in me, things like that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I remember this quote. I thought of it while I was watching the movie Captain Marvel, and at the start, and she says like she's talking to some guy and the character, and he says like each experience we have is unique to us, and our subconscious projects in unique ways, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. So like I instantly related that to the weird flying boulders, like in the cinema watching that, and I hadn't heard about projections and stuff at that time either.
Yeah, look,
So
absolutely. It sort of does make a sort of a broader perspective on things on that sort of aspect. Like, are we is reality reality? and
yeah,
then
that's right.
you
Like
question
yeah, it
reality.
comes down to it. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, like the stuff about seeing like how we're really seeing a hologram inside our head, that's all in Tom DeLonge's non-fiction books, and they're so deep compared to like versus Tom in Blink-182 saying aliens exist or whatever. And then you read his non-fiction books and you learn like quantum mechanics and everything. It's like far out. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
but
getting close to having to wrap it up though,
that's
Anthony.
what I mean. Yeah, I was just getting close to seeing if you get trouble in man. But that's all good, man. Look, I was just gonna say, like, a lot of people sort of claim that, like, we already are a energy sort of spirit that's
Yeah,
able to do stuff, and then whatever we are in at the moment is like just a vessel that we're just sort of borrowing for the time for whatever reasons. Like, and there's a lot of different theories there, but like that can be left for another time.
it's
So
it's in the it's in the gateway process document. Sorry to interrupt you, but
you're right.
it specifically says in these declassified documents from the 80s that our consciousness creates our brain and everything like that comes first. So
Mm.
like it definitely is another conversation, and I think maybe we'll have to wait for a bit more of disclosure to evolve or something for us normal people to understand that.
Absolutely. And hopefully there's a bit more information from this new, whistleblower with David Grosh there, and see if we get something out there sort of explain, what we are with these new species of beings there, whether they can sort of tap us in a bit deeper and give us a better understanding of what life actually is, give us what our meanings are. What is the meaning of life here? What are we? Who are we? Where do we come from? Kind of thing, Give us some more answers. That's what we really want.
Yeah, perhaps they can't explain that stuff without explaining the quantum mechanics stuff to us first. Like, I wonder about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's our next age, isn't it? The quantum mechanics and quantum physics and computing and all sorts of stuff, and AI technology is going to be taking over and all sorts of stuff. It's going to be a scary sort of future for us, really. I sort of feel.
Yeah, try not to project fear. I do too. Like, I always think it, but I don't know. Grateful to be on this planet while we're here. We are, like, I know, because I left my body and I went somewhere, and other people have, like, I found this document, similar thing. So I just know in my heart of hearts that there is something else. The Egyptians, all the ancients used to tell us that, and somewhere maybe in the last 100 or so years, maybe after they burn all the witches, and then we've sort of started to, like, forget that we are like there is a thing. Science took over, but science has become, well, not specifically like the method of science, but people hiding behind the method of science and not studying this stuff. Like, that's become its own little religion or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like I'm a lot that way too. Like, my heart knows that there's more to this world than we can perceive, but my brain is so scientifically strong on, like, trying to dismiss everything in that regard. Like, a lot of stuff on social media's, like, damaged me, like some of the crap that's out there. And I don't mean any disrespect, like I was saying before. Like, there are some odd people out there. I don't mean any disrespect to, like, that sort of regard. But there's things that we need to try and understand. And what I'm trying to say is, like, I know there are things out there. I understand completely that there's a broader world out there we need to try and understand. But yeah, again, my brain's just, like, so scientifically strong that evidence is key to try and give out a better outcome into what people are trying to explain with their experiences and stuff, if that makes sense. If we can give that evidence, it makes us sound more credible when we try and explain our experiences.
100%.
So, that's basically what I try and bring out on people, and try and hope that they can sort of sound more credible, so they're not sounding like they're the crazy people of the whole unknown community. Like, we're not all crazy people, to say the least.
No, I don't worry about that stuff too much anymore. I've decided, actually, I got to the stage. I posted about disclosure for so long on Facebook, and maybe like 3 or 4 people would regularly interact, but most people, they didn't care. And now that we've stepped up to, like, non-human intelligence and bodies, I'm thinking I'm not going to post much on Facebook anymore, and just sort of let it be. And then when they start to catch up to this news, then it'll be like, well, I did say this to you.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be, like, probably doing the same thing, sitting back, watching and see where it's going to go with mainstream media, and then go, see, look, I bloody told you I'm not crazy.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. All right, Anthony, I'll have to wrap it up, man.
That's all right, mate. Look, mate, it's been wonderful having you on there, mate. It's absolutely fantastic, mate. I enjoyed it every minute with you. It's look, you had some wonderful experiences there by the sounds of it, and hopefully you can sort of work on a bit more there and try and get a bit of a better understanding, especially with this meditation and this perception that new adventure you're perceiving through your own inner soul, basically, mate.
Yeah, that's what it is. Thank you.
So yeah, mate, wonderful, mate. Thanks very much, mate. All the best.
All right, cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
See ya. And that will do it, folks, for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. And don't forget, if you or someone you know has had an encounter, please get in touch with me to be featured on the podcast. If you're a fan of the show, you can support the podcast by purchasing some awesome merchandise that's available on our online store via the link provided in the episode description. So thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Encounter Down Under. Hooroo!